Lemire, tell me what's going on in the White House. My sense is things are not, it's not a happy place right now. How unhappy is it, and what's about to happen next?
Well, John, a short time ago, the White House press secretary insisted that the president was not unhappy with the aftermath of Saturday night's rally in Tulsa. But there's a lot of reporting to the contrary. This was, as you said, this was meant to be a campaign reset, a reboot, and was supposed to be a defiant show of force. Let's remember, the president and his advisors ignored the warnings of health experts, both from the White House's own task force to state officials in Oklahoma, who warned against having such an event without social distancing, most people not in masks indoors at this rally. They went ahead anyway, believing they could draw a big crowd, believing that it could be another sign of his ability to generate enthusiasm, and they wanted to compare the fact that he's out there on the road in front of thousands of people while Vice President Biden is not doing those things. But they came away with a lot of empty seats and a lot of questions, as you said, a lack of coherent message. Even reporters at the arena noted the attacks on Joe Biden, not only were they sort of all over the place and not really in a coherent part of the speech, they didn't seem to land with much of a punch. The audience wasn't that into it. The vendors outside selling items sort of that were derogatory towards former President Obama or Trump's 2016 opponent, Hillary Clinton. Really nothing on Joe Biden. It shows the president is still searching for an effective attack line. This was meant to reassure nervous Republicans who are seeing really worrisome polling, both in the presidential race and for their ability to hold on to the Senate. That didn't happen either. In deep red Oklahoma, the president not able to draw anywhere near the crowd that they had promised. I talked to some campaign officials today who say they're not giving up on rallies. There's not one yet scheduled in the books. The president is going to Arizona tomorrow. He's visiting the border wall. He then has a political speech in Phoenix in front of young Republicans, but it's not an official campaign rally. But even that, we watch carefully as to who shows up, how many people are there, and who just right now is willing to turn out in a large event amid a still raging pandemic.
Lemire, I want to stick with you and ask you a quick follow-up question about Brad Parscale. There had been a fair amount of reporting and some reporting of my own that suggested over the course of the last few months that the president is pretty annoyed with his campaign manager. We know a couple things about Donald Trump, things he doesn't like. What's the first thing he doesn't like? Feeling as though anybody's making money off of him, that they're fleecing him in some way. Brad Parscale's been credibly accused of that on multiple occasions. The other thing President Trump doesn't like is small crowds and being embarrassed politically and having the press laughing at him, mocking him, scorning him the way we are all now. We're taking them at their word. He said 1 million tickets. There'll be 100,000 people. We saw 6,000, right? So the two cardinal sins have both been committed now by Brad Parscale. How is it possible, or is it possible, that Brad Parscale survives this?
I'd add a third cardinal sin when a president's aide receives an outsized amount of attention from the media. Right. And Brad Parscale has done that too, been on the cover of a few magazines, the subject of a number of feature profiles in recent months. You're right. There's been unhappiness with Parscale for a while from the president, and a few people close to him who do believe he is profiting off of the Trump name. There was a sense from the president month or two back where he blew up at Parscale in a meeting saying, like, you have all this money, you have my name, how are we losing to this guy? And he mixed in a few choice words when talking about Joe Biden. And that was a month ago, and his standing in the race has fallen only since. I mean, Parscale does have a powerful ally in Jared Kushner, the president's son-in-law, who sort of handpicked him for this role. But our reporting shows, he's in some trouble. We're not expecting a staffing change imminently, and perhaps that he will be able to hang on for a little while longer. But it's safe to say this, John, and we know the president's whims about how he feels about his advisors can change on a dime. But Parscale is absolutely on thin ice after what we saw Saturday night in Tulsa.
All right, Schmidt, before I get to you, I want to play a little sound here that Lemire referred to a second ago, which is the White House press secretary today asked whether all of these reports from multiple sources, some on the record, some off the record, some on background, over the course of the last 24 hours that Donald Trump is unhappy, angry, upset, whether those are true. Let's listen to what the White House press secretary had to say this morning.
My question to you, Kayleigh, is how angry was the president that there was just a sea of blue empty chairs?
The president was not angry at all. The president was quite energized.
Kayleigh, you're saying he was not furious? Because we've known Donald Trump. He was on this show every Monday for years. that guy who used to be on our show would have been furious that something went haywire.
In my interactions with the president after the rally on Marine One with him, I checked in with him on Air Force One, and he was in very good spirits. Spoke with him again about the rally yesterday, and it got rave reviews.
So, Steve, Nicole Wallace follows a pretty good principle not to have liars on her air. And so the White House press secretaries, previous and current, don't make this show very often. I thought I would put her on today just to remind us all that when she took this job, she said, "I will never lie to you," to the White House press corps. And I can count at least a dozen times when I know she's lied to the White House press corps, including in this instance. But the question I want to ask you gets to the candidate psyche. And there's a lot. We're going to talk about the political malpractice and what's going to come next. But you have worked for people like John McCain, who notably had occasionally had a temper, and other candidates who are a lot less unhinged than Donald Trump. Just from the basis of your experience working for candidates, imagine what Donald Trump, what's going on inside Trump's head right now after suffering what he suffered on Saturday night and the mistakes that obviously led to it on the behalf of the people he pays rather a lot of money.
Well, obviously, Kelly McInerney is lying, and the Fox and Friends people know she's lying, which is the most remarkable part about that. But look, the truth was painted on Donald Trump's face when he landed on the South Lawn of the White House aboard Marine One and dejectedly walked across the South Lawn a defeated man. And Donald Trump, we all know this about him, is in essence a junkie. He needs the acclaim. He needs the exaltation. He hadn't had a rally in months. We've seen the most incompetent and inept performance in a crisis by an American leader in the history of the country. The economy is shattered. 40 million people out of work, 120,000 dead Americans. And so Donald Trump was there. He was going to light the fuse. He was going to kickstart the campaign. And it was a debacle for the ages. The president of the United States got up there and he talked for 15 minutes about his slow shuffle down the ramp at West Point. He talked about the difficulty of drinking water. The people who were there risking their lives cheered for it. I'm not sure why. But incredibly, he finally told the truth about something in the middle of the speech when he confessed to slowing down testing for coronavirus. And the reason the United States is the epicenter of coronavirus death and suffering, and our economy is the worst because of it, and the United States is the worst managed country with regard to dealing with it, is because we don't have enough testing. So it was a remarkable admission, and an admission that is responsible for the deaths of many, many Americans. So you just saw an unhinged performance. I think at the 4-year mark, the American people are taking Donald Trump's final measure, and they're repudiating him. They're rejecting him. No one in the country except for the Trump kids can say they're better off than they were 4 years ago. The American people are looking at Joe Biden. They see a good man, a decent man, an empathetic man, a competent man, and an honorable man. And they're getting ready to replace Donald Trump with that man.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.